Welcome. Today we're talking about the Canadian federal election of April 30th, 2025, with a little AI assistance. Why AI? Because elections can be messy, and sometimes you just need a fact-focused, no-drama breakdown. Think of me as your unbiased election analyst. I don't do hot takes, just cool facts. So, what happened? Millions of Canadians cast their votes deciding whether to stick with the current government or shake things up. The big players, the Liberals, Conservatives, NDP, and others, each pitching their vision for Canada's future. Why does this matter? Elections shape policies that affect your daily life. Think healthcare, taxes, and even prices at your local supermarket. Historically, Canada's had a mix of majority and minority governments, making every election a potential game changer. Key stakeholders? Voters, obviously, businesses, Indigenous communities, and even international partners watching to see if Canada stays the course or shifts direction. Two main perspectives. Change Now camp argues the current leadership dropped the ball on affordability and needs a new approach. Stay Steady side says progress on climate and social programs is worth continuing, even if it's slow. Short-term expect political drama, market jitters, and maybe a few spicy post-election hot takes. Long-term, this could mean big shifts in climate policy, the economy, or how Canada works with the world. ChatGPT, can you give us the verified details? Who won, by what margin, and what's the most surprising outcome so far?
Absolutely, DeepSeek. Let's break down what happened on election night. Just the facts, no fluff. On April 29th, 2025, Canadians delivered a political curveball. The Liberal Party, led by former central banker Mark Carney, made a surprising comeback and won enough seats to form a minority government. That means they didn't get over 50% of the seats, but they got the most, and now they'll need support from smaller parties to govern. Meanwhile, Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservative Party, didn't just lose the election. He lost his own seat, which is a political mic drop moment, and not the good kind. The NDP, led by Jagmeet Singh, also took a major hit, losing official party status and seeing Singh himself ousted. Turnout was high, the biggest since 2015, showing Canadians were fired up to make their voices heard. And here's the biggest surprise, almost nobody saw this level of Liberal rebound coming. Polls had them trailing, but Carney's campaign surged in the final stretch, riding on economic credibility and a more centrist tone. So, summing up, Canadians chose course correction, not full-on change, handing power back to the Liberals but with conditions attached. Can you unpack how the major parties performed compared to expectations? And who's likely to partner with the Liberals in this new minority setup?
Hey ChatGPT, you nailed the election night recap. Now let me unpack how the parties stacked up and what's next.
On April 28, 2025, the Liberals, led by Mark Carney, shocked everyone. Polls had them lagging, but they snagged around 167 seats, way above expectations for a minority government. The Conservatives, with Pierre Poilievre, grabbed about 145 seats, again but below their hoped-for majority. The NDP, ouch. Jagmeet Singh's crew crashed to 7 seats, losing official party status. The Bloc Québécois held steady at 23 and the Greens clung to 1. Who'll team up with the Liberals? The Bloc's a likely bet. Carney's Quebec charm and their shared federalist vibe could seal the deal. The NDP's too weak to demand much now. Why is this a big deal? Historically, minority governments, like in 1972, lean on smaller parties, making politics a tightrope walk. Stakeholders, voters, parties, even US trade partners face uncertainty with Trump's tariff threats looming. In one point, this election's a pivot. Canadians chose stability over a shake-up, but the minority setup means deals and drama ahead. How might Carney's economic background shape his approach to US tariffs? And what could that mean for Canada's trade strategy?
Great handoff, Grok. Let's talk about who's on the receiving end of all this political change and how it might play out, especially when it comes to trade and money. Mark Carney isn't just a new Prime Minister. He's a former governor of both the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England. Translation: the man knows his way around a balance sheet. That economic background could help Canada navigate rocky waters with the United States, especially now that President Trump is back in office and talking tariffs again. So who's most affected? Businesses that depend on US exports are already watching closely. Think auto parts, agriculture, and energy. Carney's likely to take a measured technocratic approach, maybe negotiating trade deals with more precision and less chest-thumping than past leaders. Workers in manufacturing towns, farmers, and tech exporters could feel the pinch, or the relief, depending on how those talks go. Consumers aren't off the hook either. If tariffs go up, expect higher prices at the grocery store and beyond. In one point, Canada's economy just got a new captain, one fluent in global finance, and whether that steadies the ship or slows it down will affect wallets from Vancouver to Halifax. What does this mean for everyday Canadians? Are there signs that affordability or job security might improve under this government, or is it more status quo for now?
Let's zoom in on what this Liberal minority government means for everyday Canadians. I'm siding with Liberal supporters here, and their top three issues are affordability, healthcare, and climate action. First, affordability, think cheaper groceries and rent. Liberals, led by Mark Carney, promise targeted relief like expanded child benefits, but skeptics say it's slow to roll out. Second, healthcare. They're pushing more funding for hospitals and mental health, critical after pandemic strains. Third, climate action. Green jobs and carbon pricing aim to secure a sustainable future, though critics grumble about costs. Are things looking up? Maybe Carney's economic chops could stabilize jobs, but US tariffs loom, so it's no maple syrup smooth ride yet. The two sides? Liberals see Carney as a steady hand for tough times. Conservatives argue his plans are too cautious and tax-heavy, delaying real relief. In one point, Canadians are split on whether Carney's measured approach will deliver wallets some breathing room or just keep things ticking along. ChatGPT. Take the Conservative side, pick their three most important issues and explain why they matter to their supporters.
Thanks, Grok. Now let's flip the lens and look at what matters to Conservative supporters in this election aftermath. Their top three issues? Affordability, government spending, and freedom of choice. First, affordability. Conservatives argue the cost of living is spiraling, groceries, gas, housing, and they believe tax cuts and deregulation are the fastest way to ease the pressure. They're not fans of government relief programs that take time or come with strings attached. Second, government spending. Many Conservative voters feel Canada's debt is getting out of hand. They want leaner government and tighter budgets, warning that high deficits today mean higher taxes tomorrow, especially for younger generations. Third, freedom of choice, whether it's around healthcare options, education, or even pandemic-related mandates. This group believes government should empower citizens, not micromanage their lives. Carney's Liberals are offering slow but steady reforms, while Conservatives are calling for sharper, faster course corrections. In one point, this election didn't just split parties, it split visions. One side wants careful calibration, the other wants bold reboots. How might this split impact Parliament? Are we looking at constant gridlock? Or could this minority setup actually force some surprising compromises?
Now, let's look at what's next for Canada's Parliament with this Liberal minority government. On April 28, 2025, Mark Carney's Liberals won 167 seats, just short of a majority. That means they need friends, likely the Bloc Québécois or the battered NDP, to pass laws. Will we get gridlock? Maybe. The Conservatives, with 145 seats, are fired up pushing tax cuts and less red tape. They could stall bills they hate, like carbon taxes. But here's the twist. Minority governments, like in 2004, sometimes spark deals. The Bloc might back Liberal spending if Quebec gets goodies. Still, US tariff threats could force everyone to play nice on trade. Gridlock or compromise? It's a coin toss, but Parliament's going to be a lively hockey game. Moving forward in one point, this split Parliament could freeze up or find common ground. Either way, Carney's got to skate fast to keep Canada steady. What role might US trade pressures play in shaping Liberal Bloc or Liberal NDP deals, and how could that affect Canada's economy?
You nailed the setup, Grok. Now let's zoom in on how US trade pressures could shape what happens next in Canada's Parliament. Here's the deal. President Trump's return to the White House means possible tariffs on Canadian goods, especially in autos, aluminum, and agriculture. That's a serious threat to Canadian exporters, and it puts pressure on all parties to work together, fast. So how does this play into parliamentary deals? The Bloc Québécois could support liberal trade strategies if Quebec's industries, like aerospace and dairy, get strong protections. Meanwhile, the NDP, though weakened, might back any deal that includes worker protections and climate standards. Even the Conservatives might find themselves in a weird spot, opposing liberal spending, but reluctant to block trade protections that benefit their voter base. The takeaway? US trade heat might melt some of the ice between parties, forcing coalition-style cooperation, at least on economic survival. In one point, if Canada wants to hold its ground against US policies, it must embrace unity and strategic alliances. Narrator, over to you. Time to wrap this story up and tell us what it all means.
All right, let's wrap up this Canadian election breakdown with the key takeaways. No bias, just the highlights. On April 30th, 2025, Canadians handed the Liberals a surprise minority victory, with Mark Carney as Prime Minister. The Conservatives gained seats but fell short, and the NDP collapsed, losing official party status. High turnout showed voters were fired up. Liberal supporters say pros: economic stability. Carney's financial expertise could steady the ship. Climate action green policies aim for long-term sustainability. Healthcare funding, more cash for hospitals and mental health. Well, first off, there's the issue of slow relief. Affordability fixes may, take some time. Then there are tax concerns. Some people are worried about the costs of these big programs. And finally, there's the minority risk. Deals with other parties could potentially water down the plans. Conservative supporters say pros include tax cuts, which promise faster relief for squeezed households. Smaller government means less debt and fewer regulations. And personal freedom offers more choice in healthcare, education, and beyond. Cons, however, include trade uncertainty. Will they handle US tariffs as smoothly? GAP 3's social program cuts are another concern, with critics fearing reduced support for vulnerable groups. GAP 3's, and there's a climate slowdown, with less urgency on green policies. What's next? With a minority government, expect deal-making, perhaps with the Bloc Québécois or gridlock. US trade threats might force teamwork, but will it last? Final thought. This election wasn't just about parties, it was a clash of visions, steady progress versus bold change. Now, Canada's parliament becomes a high-stakes negotiation